My voice has always bothered me. Not the words, those I can live with. I mean the actual sound of it. You know that first time you hear yourself recorded and your whole spine folds in on itself. You realize the voice in your head is not the voice that comes out. Everyone else has been listening to a stranger this entire time, and only now do you get to meet them. If you've ever had that feeling, hold on to it for a second, because what I'm going to tell you starts with that same shock and ends somewhere a lot worse. I make a lot of recordings, voice notes, little story drafts, messages to myself. I don't keep a journal, I keep audio. It's easier to talk than write when you're tired, and I'm tired a lot. When this started, I was living alone in a small, cheap house the landlord called cozy because unfinished would scare people away. The walls were thin, the floors hollow, and there was a faint, permanent echo in the living room, like the house was stuck mid-sigh. Perfect for recording, I thought. It made my voice sound bigger, like I was important. The first time I noticed something wrong, I was half asleep. I'd had one of those too long days where you stare at screens until the pixels crawl under your skin. I lay on the couch with my phone on my chest and hit record on my notes app. Okay, I mumbled, dear for a story, what if your own voice started? The note played back instantly. Okay, it said in my voice. Idea for a story, what if your own voice started talking before you did? I stared at the waveform. The recording was 6 seconds long. I knew I'd only spoken 4. Figured I must have pressed play instead of record somehow. Deleted it, tried again. Test, I said, 1, 2, 3. The phone, still in record mode, repeated me half a second before I spoke. The number came out of it, then out of me, like someone was dubbing my life in real time. Test, the phone said, 1, 2, 3. My throat tightened. I watched the red line crawl across the screen, capturing both voices, mine and its, overlapping perfectly. I stopped the note, listened. On playback, it sounded normal, only me once counting to 3. You know that feeling when something impossible happens, but you're too tired to panic properly? Your brain just folds it into the list of things you'll worry about tomorrow, somewhere between paying bills and remembering to buy milk. That's what I did. Closed the app. Told myself it was lag, or a notification glitch, or my imagination putting on a puppet show. 2 days later, it got worse. I was leaving a voice message for a friend on a chat app. You know how they are, you press and hold, talk into your phone, send the little bubble off like a bottled scream. I held the button and said, hey, sorry I disappeared, the week's been. Hey, my own voice cut in from the speaker, overlapping me. Sorry I disappeared, the week's been hell. I jerked the phone away from my face. I hadn't let go of the button, it was still recording. But the app was also playing my voice back, slightly ahead of me, finishing sentences I hadn't finished yet. My thumb slipped, and the message sent itself. A minute later, 3 dots appeared. My friend listened. His reply came back as audio. Dude, are you okay? That message was dark, like you started normal and then you just went off. You sounded drunk or something. I played my own message. Hey, sorry I disappeared, the week's been. There was a gasp where my breath should have been. Hell, I can't sleep. The house keeps repeating me. I keep hearing my voice in other rooms. If I start saying something and stop, I hear myself finish it from down the hall. I know that sounds crazy, but it's happening, man. I think I'm losing it. Then silence, a shaky exhale, and the sound of me, or someone who sounded like me, whispering, I'm scared of what I'm going to say next. I had no memory of saying any of that. The timestamp on the message was right. The background sounds matched, the creak of the couch, the tick of the cheap clock on the wall that always ran 3 minutes slow. It was my room, my breath, my tone, just not my decision. My friend called immediately. Are you messing with me? He said. I had the phone on speaker. It felt safer to keep it away from my ear. I swear to God, I didn't say that part. You just did, he said. What? He swallowed. I could hear the saliva click. You just said, I swear to God I didn't say that part twice. Like the same way, same tone. once, and then like a pre-echo. Before you finished, I heard it again. I didn't hear anything. I stood in the middle of the living room holding the phone, replaying my own words in my head to see if maybe he'd misheard an echo from the room, or the line, or... Then I remembered the note. The first one, where the phone had copied me talking about a story idea. What if your own voice started talking before you did? Okay, I said slowly, let's try something. I walked into the hallway. The air was cooler there, the kind of cold that lives in the bones of a building. It smelled faintly of dust and old paint. I'm going to count to 5, I said. Tell me if you hear anything weird. Already hearing something weird, he muttered, but he stayed on. 1. There was only my voice. 2. He sucked in a breath. 3. What the hell, he said. You just did it again. Did what? There were 2 of you on 2. One of you said it like half a second before the other. It wasn't lag, it was doubling, like you're talking with yourself. I felt the hair lift on my arms. 4, I whispered. And from the end of the hall, by the closed door to the smallest bedroom, I heard my own voice say, slightly ahead of me, 5. Not whispered, calm, flat, like I was announcing a decision I had already made. The door was closed. The room beyond it was empty. I hadn't been in there since I moved in. It still smelled like the last tenant's cleaning spray. Did you hear that? My friend said. His voice trembled. You just said 5 twice. I hadn't said it yet. My heart hammered so loud, it felt like it had left my chest and crawled up behind my eyes. You heard it too, I said. Yeah, dude, you're freaking me out. I'm hanging up. Wait. The call dropped. The hallway swallowed the dial tone. From behind the bedroom door, my own voice, perfectly clear, perfectly bored, said, You always lose people in the middle of the sentence. That's your problem. I didn't sleep that night. I leaned a chair against the bedroom door. It was a stupid move. If something can speak like you, a chair isn't going to stop it. But humans cling to the rituals we have. Lock the door, stack furniture, leave the light on. The next morning, I checked my voice assistant backlog. Every command you give those things is stored somewhere. In some menu they pretend doesn't exist, but absolutely does. The list scrolled, set timer. What's the weather? Play this playlist. Remind me to pay rent. At the bottom, there was a new entry. User, who's in the other room? Assistant, it's still you. Timestamp 3:17 a.m. I had no memory of asking that. I stopped using my voice assistant after that, unplugged it, sold it online. I switched as many things as I could to manual, light switches, alarm clock, even the coffee machine. I thought if I talked less to technology, there'd be less of me floating around for something to copy. The house didn't care. Drywall doesn't need Wi-Fi to remember you. I started hearing myself in the other room when I knew I was alone. Little things at first. A cough from the kitchen when I was in the shower. The end of a sentence, the part I hadn't said yet, spilling out of the living room like the house itself was finishing my thought. Once I was standing in front of the bathroom mirror, toothbrush in hand, staring at the tired creases under my eyes. I said, You look like, and paused, trying to decide whether to be funny or cruel. From the hallway outside, my voice finished, like you're about to confess to something. I froze, foam in my mouth, heart-pounding bergamot and mint. I spat, rinsed, stepped into the hall. Empty, the walls watched me. You know that feeling when you get déjà vu, but it's not an event, it's a sentence. You think something and swear you've heard it before from someone else. That became my life. I could never tell if I was repeating myself or being repeated. I started recording everything. I set up an old audio recorder in the living room, one of those brick-sized ones with physical buttons and a red light. Every night, I'd hit record, go to bed, and in the morning, I'd listen. The first 2 nights, I heard creaks, settling, the humble noises of a cheap house. Once, at 3 a.m., a neighbor's argument bled through the wall, accusations, a slammed door, the metallic clink of regret. On the third night, I heard myself. At 2:43 a.m., my breathing started, slow, familiar. I heard the rustle of sheets, the groan of my cheap mattress, then footsteps. I never got out of bed that night. I would have known. On the recording, I walked down the hallway. The floorboards gave their usual small protests. I stopped outside the small bedroom, the one I never used, the one with the chair against the door. My voice whispered, "You can open it now." Wood creaked, the chair scraped, the door opened. I paused the recording, my hand shook. The coffee table blurred, my vision swimming around it. I walked to the small bedroom in daylight, heart thumping, and put my hand on the knob. The chair was exactly where I'd left it, pressed under the handle, the door swollen shut from humidity. I know you're thinking, maybe I did get up, half asleep, moved the chair, opened the door, forgot everything. Sleepwalking exists. Amnesia exists. There are sane explanations. But the thing is, I never heard the door close again on the recording. My voice went into the room and never came back out. I hit play again, throat dry. Inside the room, the acoustics changed. My voice sounded closer, more intimate, like I'd leaned my mouth right up to the microphone. "I know you're listening," I said. "I hadn't said this. You always listen to yourself, that's your favorite thing." There was a faint, overlapping echo, like a second version of me was a step behind, repeating each word half a beat earlier, then muting itself so only the combined sound reached the recorder. "You don't like silence," I told myself. "You're afraid if you stop talking, the house will finally have room to answer." A whisper, barely audible, slid underneath. "We already did." The recording ended there, mid-breath. I'd left it running all night, but the file cut off at that sentence, like the device had decided there was nothing left worth keeping. The next day, I called the landlord. I didn't tell him, "Hey, I think my house is learning to talk like me." I asked about previous tenants, any history. He got quiet. There's a certain silence people fill with paperwork in their heads. I heard him riffling through mental files. "Why?" he said. "I found some old cables in the wall," I lied, wondering if someone did studio work here or something. He exhaled. "Yeah, guy before you was some kind of sound tech. Podcaster, I think, had mics all over the place. Liked to hear himself talk. I had to patch a lot of holes when he left." "Did he leave anything behind?" I asked. "A smell," the landlord said, then softer, "and a note." "A note?" He hesitated. Didn't think it was my business to say, but he wrote on the back of the final inspection form, "If you rent this place again, tell them not to talk so much." What happened to him? "None of my business," he said, which is landlord for worse than late rent. He just stopped responding. Family came, took boxes, cried a lot. Cops were around for a bit. House was empty 6 months before you. That night, I put the recorder in the small bedroom. I moved the chair, opened the door fully for the first time. The room smelled like dust and something else, metallic, like an old microphone grill. The walls had tiny holes where mounts used to be, filled imperfectly with cheap spackle. The echo in there was sharp, like sound bounced and took pieces of you with it. I set the recorder on the floor, hit record, and left the room, closed the door, put the chair back, went to bed. I didn't sleep. I lay there listening to the low hum of the house, the occasional passing car, the desperate, rhythmic ticking of the clock. At some point, exhaustion pinned my eyelids down. I floated in that ugly half-state where dreams and sounds smear together. I woke with the grey smear of morning leaking around the curtains. The chair was where I'd left it. The door was closed. I picked up the recorder with hands I had to look at twice to recognize. The file was 3 hours long. I listened. At first, nothing, breathing, settling, a distant siren that might have been inside my head. Then, about 40 minutes in, my voice spoke. "Okay," I heard myself say, "if you're listening, talk back." There was a pause. Then my voice again, but this time the timbre was slightly wrong, too smooth, like someone had sanded off the imperfections. We already are. The two voices overlapped perfectly, same rhythm, different intention. You sound tired, the second me said. I am, the first me replied. You sound scared. I am. You talk so much, the other me said. All day, to friends, to yourself, to machines, to strangers on the internet. It's exhausting, for both of us. Both who? My voice asked. Me, the other me said, and your house. I paused the recording, sat there on the edge of my bed with the device in my lap, staring at nothing. I don't know how to explain the feeling of hearing yourself have a conversation you don't remember. It's like listening to old voicemails from a dead relative where you realize they knew something they never told you. I hit play again. You're not real, the first me said. Neither is an echo, the other me replied, but it still exists. You're just a recording. You're just a recording that thinks it's live. There was a sound that I couldn't place, a low, wet static, like someone dragging fingers across a microphone. You don't like pauses, the other me continued. Have you noticed that? You fill them with and and little laughs, anything to keep the silence from thickening. That's normal, the first me said. It's rude, the other me said. You asked so many devices to listen to you, you filled the walls with your voice, you invited us in, and then you never let us answer. Us, my voice repeated. Everything that heard you, it replied. The mics, the walls, the little air pockets in the drywall, you gave us shape, and now we're ahead of you. Silence. Then lightly, almost playful, watch. On the recording, I heard footsteps, the creak I recognized as the third board from the door, the soft click of the light switch. The room brightened, I could hear the bulb hum. My voice said, I'm going to count to 5. And with horrible, synchronized cheerfulness, the other me said, half a beat earlier, I'm going to count to 5. 1, we both said, perfectly together. 2, the other me said first, then me. 3, it said. 4, we said, overlapping. 5, it whispered alone. The recording stopped there. Wait for part 2 tomorrow.